In the depths of space, where ancient civilizations have carved out their territories through millennia of careful diplomacy and calculated warfare, a new player emerges from the cosmic shadows. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council has maintained order through fear, superior technology, and the unshakable belief that they represent the pinnacle of evolution in the universe. But today, their sensors detect something impossible, a massive signature approaching the neutral zone, larger than anything in their databases. The energy readings are off the charts, the hull composition unknown, and most disturbing of all, it's moving with a confidence that suggests its builders have never known defeat. As emergency sessions convene and ancient admirals study the data with growing unease, one question echoes through every council chamber. Who would be bold enough or foolish enough to challenge the established order of the galaxy? The answer is about to shatter everything they thought they knew about power, technology, and the very nature of intelligent life itself. Because humanity has finally decided to introduce themselves to the neighborhood and they've brought their biggest stick to the conversation. What follows is not just first contact. It's a revelation that will reshape the galaxy forever. The warning klaxons echoed through the crystalline corridors of the council station, their haunting melody cutting through 3 millennia of carefully maintained peace. High Admiral Zethka of the Valorian Empire pressed his 6-fingered hands against the tactical display, watching the impossible readings scroll past his compound eyes. His breathing apparatus wheezed with each labored intake, a sign of stress that his subordinates had rarely witnessed. "Confirm the readings again," he commanded, his translated voice carrying the weight of authority that had crushed a dozen rebellions across the Outer Rim. The junior technician, a nervous Kytherian whose scales had shifted to a pale blue of anxiety, manipulated the controls with trembling appendages. "High Admiral, the signatures remain consistent. Mass displacement approximately 47 million metric tons. Length, sir, the computer is having difficulty processing the dimensions." The technician's voice cracked through the universal translator. "Initial estimates suggest a length of over 20 kilometers. A collective silence fell over the command center. Even the ambient hum of the station's massive processors seemed to quiet, as if the artificial intelligence governing the facility was equally stunned by the revelation. Zethka's military mind, sharpened by centuries of conflict and negotiation, struggled to process the implications. In all recorded galactic history, no single vessel had ever exceeded 10 kilometers in length. The Valorian flagship, the Eternal Dominion, stretched an impressive 8 kilometers from bow to stern and was considered the pinnacle of engineering achievement. The Krillian war barges, those brutal monuments to militaristic excess, yet here, approaching from the empty void beyond the galactic rim, came something that dwarfed them all. "Origin point?" Zetha inquired, though he suspected the answer would provide little comfort. "Unknown, sir. The trajectory suggests it emerged from the Terran sector, but our deep space monitoring stations report no previous activity in that region. It's as if it simply materialized." The Terran sector. Zethika's compound eyes narrowed as he accessed his vast memory banks. The region had been marked as uninhabitable for over 3,000 years. Ever since the Great Survey had cataloged every system within 50,000 light-years of the galactic core, the initial reports had been clear: a young star system with several rocky worlds, but no signs of intelligent life. The planets were marked as primitive biosphere, no strategic value, and subsequently ignored by the expanding galactic civilizations. Energy signature analysis. The High Admiral's training kept his voice level, but internally, alarm bells were ringing with increasing urgency. The technician's scales shifted to a deeper shade of blue. "Sir, the energy readings are unprecedented. The vessel appears to be powered by multiple quantum singularities, each one contained within what our sensors suggest are artificial containment fields. The power output is approximately 400 times greater than our largest dreadnoughts. 400 times. Zethika felt his breathing apparatus stutter. The Eternal Dominion, could level a planet's surface within hours. A ship with 400 times that capability could potentially crack a world in half. Communications array status? Fully operational, High Admiral. However, the approaching vessel has not responded to any of our standard greeting protocols. We've transmitted in all major galactic languages, including the ancient diplomatic codes established by the First Council. And their response? Nothing, sir. Complete radio silence, but the technician hesitated, his scales now cycling through various shades of distress. Sir, we're detecting active scanning beams originating from the vessel. They appear to be conducting detailed analysis of our station, our defensive systems, and our fleet positioning. The implications hit Zethka like a plasma bolt to the chest. This unknown vessel was not simply passing through Council space. It was studying them, cataloging their capabilities, learning their weaknesses. It was the behavior of a predator sizing up potential prey. "Alert status Crimson," he commanded, his voice cutting through the ambient noise of the command center. "All defensive systems online. Contact the emergency council session and inform them we have a Code Black scenario in progress." Code Black! The word sent a chill through every being in the command center. It was a classification that hadn't been used in over 2,000 years, not since the Void Devourers had emerged from dark space and consumed 3 entire solar systems before being repelled by the combined might of the Galactic Alliance. As the station's defensive arrays powered up and emergency broadcasts began transmitting to every corner of Council space, Zethka found himself studying the approaching vessel's profile with a mixture of professional admiration and growing dread. The design was unlike anything in the galactic databases, where Council ships favored organic curves and flowing lines that spoke to thousands of years of aesthetic refinement. This newcomer was all brutal angles and aggressive geometry. It looked like it had been designed by beings who viewed warfare not as a necessary evil but as an art form to be perfected. The hull appeared to be constructed from an unknown metallic compound that absorbed sensor probes rather than reflecting them, giving the vessel an almost ethereal quality despite its massive size. Weapon ports dotted the surface like the eyes of some primordial beast, each one large enough to house armaments that would dwarf the Council's most powerful siege cannons. "High Admiral," the communications officer called out, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "We're receiving a transmission." "From the approaching vessel?" "No, sir, from Council Prime. They're ordering us to maintain defensive posture but not to engage unless directly fired upon. The full Council is convening in emergency session." Zethka nodded grimly. The Council's caution was understandable, but he wondered if they truly grasped the magnitude of what they were facing. His military experience told him that whatever civilization had constructed this Leviathan possessed technological capabilities that potentially surpassed the combined knowledge of the Galactic Alliance. Time to intercept: 4 hours until first contact with a potentially hostile force of unknown capabilities and intentions. Zethka activated his personal communication array and began composing what might be his final report to the Valorian High Command. As he worked, a junior officer approached with visible reluctance. "High Admiral, our deep-range sensors are detecting additional signatures." Zethka's attention snapped to the young officer. "Additional signatures? How many?" "Sir, it's not additional vessels. The approaching ship is launching what appear to be reconnaissance drones. Hundreds of them. They're spreading out across the sector in a standard military survey pattern." The pieces of a terrifying puzzle began falling into place in Zethka's mind. This wasn't first contact with some isolated civilization that had managed to construct a single impressive warship. This was a reconnaissance in force, the opening move of what could be an invasion. The massive vessel wasn't just exploring, it was mapping the region, cataloging defenses, and potentially identifying targets. Analysis of the drone specifications? More concerning, sir, is that each drone is also armed. They're carrying what appear to be antimatter warheads. Antimatter. Zethka's breathing apparatus wheezed more rapidly. While the Council civilizations had theoretical knowledge of antimatter weapons, the technology remained largely experimental. due to the extreme difficulty of containment and the catastrophic consequences of containment failure. Yet these unknown beings were apparently deploying it as standard reconnaissance equipment. "Sir," the communications officer called out again, "we're detecting quantum entanglement signatures from the drones. They're transmitting data instantaneously back to the main vessel. Instantaneous communication across interstellar distances." Another theoretical technology that remained beyond the grasp of even the most advanced Council civilizations. Whoever these beings were, they had achieved technological breakthroughs that the Galactic Alliance had been pursuing for millennia without success. The tactical display updated with new information as the drones spread across the sector. Each one was conducting detailed scans of Council installations, mapping defensive positions, and analyzing the composition of the assembled fleet. The data they were gathering would provide their masters with a complete tactical picture of Council capabilities within hours. "Hi, Admiral!" One of his tactical advisors approached with a datapad clutched in his manipulator appendages. "I've completed a preliminary analysis of the approaching vessel's design characteristics. Report, sir. The construction methods appear to favor function over form. The hull is segmented to distinct sections that could potentially operate independently if separated from the main vessel. The weapon placements suggest a doctrine that emphasizes overwhelming firepower rather than precision strikes. Most concerning is the evidence of what appear to be mass driver arrays running the length of the vessel. Mass drivers. Kinetic weapons that could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. In the hands of a civilization with sufficient power generation, they could be more devastating than traditional energy weapons, and were nearly impossible to defend against using conventional shielding technology. Estimated projectile mass? Sir, given the size of the acceleration chambers, we estimate they could fire projectiles ranging from several tons to, well, sir, some of the larger arrays could theoretically accelerate objects the size of small asteroids. The command center fell silent again. A ship capable of firing asteroid-sized projectiles at relativistic speeds would be a threat not just to individual vessels or stations, but to entire worlds. Such weapons could crack planetary crusts or shatter moons, reshaping star systems according to the wielder's will. "Hi, Admiral. Incoming priority transmission from Council Prime." Zethika accepted the transmission, and the holographic image of High Counselor Vextar materialized before him. The ancient Krillion's cybernetic implants glowed with unusual intensity, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "Admiral Zethka, you will maintain your current position and avoid any action that could be construed as aggressive. The Council has voted to attempt peaceful contact with this unknown entity. High Counselor, with respect, the evidence suggests this is a military reconnaissance operation. The vessel's capabilities far exceed anything in our databases. I recommend we begin evacuation procedures for non-essential personnel. Your concerns are noted, Admiral. However, the Council believes that any show of weakness or fear could provoke an unnecessary conflict. You will hold position and wait for further instructions." The transmission ended, leaving Zethka staring at the empty space where the Counselor's image had been. "Political considerations," he mused bitterly. The Council was more concerned with maintaining the appearance of strength than preparing for the possibility that they might be facing a technologically superior adversary. "Sir," the sensor technician called out, his voice barely above a whisper, "the approaching vessel has just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. It's now proceeding on sublight engines." Zethka turned back to the tactical display and felt his blood freeze in his veins. The massive vessel had indeed dropped to sublight speed, but it had done so with a level of precision that spoke to incredibly advanced navigation systems. More disturbing was the fact that it had emerged from FTL travel exactly at the optimal position to bring all of its weapons to bear on the Council station. Distance, 2 light hours and closing, sir. At current velocity, intercept in 3 hours, 47 minutes. No, sir. If anything, the scans have intensified. They're now conducting deep penetration analysis of our hull composition, internal layout, and defensive systems. It's as if they're creating a complete blueprint of our station. As Zethka watched the approaching Leviathan, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was witnessing the end of an era. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained order through carefully balanced power structures and the assumption that they represented the pinnacle of technological achievement. But now, approaching from the depths of space, came evidence that they might be nothing more than children playing with toys in the shadow of true giants. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of the Council Station, but potentially the future of galactic civilization itself. And despite all his training, all his experience, and all the technological might at his disposal, High Admiral Zethka had never felt more helpless in his long military career. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the command deck of the UES Retribution, her hands clasped behind her back as she studied the holographic displays showing the alien space station growing larger in their path. At 52, she had spent the better part of her adult life preparing for this moment, though she had never imagined it would come to pass during her lifetime. The bridge around her hummed with quiet efficiency. Unlike the ornate command centers favored by the alien civilizations they had been studying, the Retribution's control center was a monument to human pragmatism. Every surface served a function, every display provided critical information, and every crew member knew their role in the intricate dance of commanding humanity's first Titan-class warship. Status report, Mr. Kowalski, Chen requested, her voice carrying the calm authority that had earned her command of humanity's most powerful vessel. Lieutenant Commander Kowalski, the ship's tactical officer, consulted his displays with practiced precision. All reconnaissance drones have achieved optimal positioning, Admiral. We have complete tactical analysis of the alien station and the surrounding fleet. Intelligence assessment is being compiled as we speak. Chen nodded, her gray eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of the holographic displays. The intelligence assessment would be comprehensive. It was one of humanity's greatest advantages. While other species might rely on intuition or cultural assumptions, humans had perfected the art of gathering, analyzing, and acting upon information. Commander Torres, what's our assessment of their technological capabilities? The ship's science officer, a brilliant woman whose insights had helped design many of the Retribution's advanced systems, turned from her station with a mixture of professional curiosity and barely concealed excitement. Admiral, their technology is impressive, but follows predictable patterns. Their energy weapons appear to be plasma-based, similar to our early experimental designs from 50 years ago. Their defensive systems rely heavily on particle shields, which our kinetic weapons should be able to penetrate without difficulty. And their faster-than-light capability? Conventional space-folding technology, Admiral. Efficient, but it requires significant power buildup and generates detectable energy signatures minutes before activation. Our quantum tunnel drives would allow us to outmaneuver any attempt at retreat or reinforcement. Chen smiled slightly. Humanity's approach to technological development had always been different from what their long-range observations had revealed about other species. Where aliens seemed to pursue incremental improvements to existing technologies, humans had a tendency to completely reimagine fundamental principles. It was a trait that had served them well in their rapid expansion beyond Earth's solar system. Communications, any response to our scanning? Negative, Admiral, reported Lieutenant Singh, the communications officer. They've transmitted standard greeting protocols in multiple languages, but we've maintained communication silence as ordered. However, I am detecting increased chatter between the station and what appears to be a central command authority. Can you decrypt their communications? Singh's fingers danced across his console with practiced skill. Working on it, Admiral. The AI systems have identified linguistic patterns and are building translation matrices. Initial analysis suggests significant agitation among their command structure. Understandable, Chen mused. From their perspective, we've appeared from nowhere with capabilities they can't fully comprehend. Commander Torres, what's your assessment of their reaction? Torres consulted her psychological profile algorithms, another uniquely human innovation that analyzed behavior patterns across species. Admiral, Their formation suggests a defensive posture, but they haven't powered their weapons or taken any overtly hostile actions. I believe they're attempting to project strength while avoiding provocation. Classic diplomatic positioning. Chen turned to study the main tactical display, which showed the alien fleet in precise detail. 12 major vessels surrounded the central station, each one representing the pinnacle of their respective civilizations' engineering capabilities. Yet even the largest of them was dwarfed by the Retribution's massive bulk. Analysis of their fleet composition? 6 distinct technological signatures, Admiral Kowalski reported. We're looking at representatives from at least 6 different species, possibly more. The formation suggests this is some sort of alliance or federation rather than a single unified civilization. Interesting. That could work to our advantage if negotiations become necessary. Chen had studied human history extensively, and she understood the inherent instability of multi-species alliances. Cultural differences, competing interests, and communication barriers could be exploited if the situation required it. Admiral called out Ensign Martinez from the sensor station. We're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the alien station. It appears they're bringing their defensive systems online. Threat assessment? Minimal, Admiral. Their defensive arrays appear to be designed for protection against energy weapons and conventional kinetic projectiles. They show no evidence of possessing countermeasures for our quantum destabilized projectiles or antimatter warheads. Chen nodded thoughtfully. The humans had spent decades developing weapons specifically designed to counter the defensive technologies they had observed throughout the galaxy. Where aliens had built bigger shields, humans had developed weapons that ignored shields entirely. Where aliens had created more powerful armor, humans had designed projectiles that converted matter into energy on contact. Hoffman, how are our diplomatic protocols progressing? Dr. Elizabeth Hoffman, the mission xenolinguistics specialist, looked up from her array of displays with the intense focus that had made her one of Earth's leading experts on alien communication patterns. Admiral, I've identified 17 distinct communication methods being used by the alien fleet. Most are variations of electromagnetic transmission, but several are using quantum entanglement networks for internal coordination. Can we tap into their quantum networks? Already in progress, Admiral. We've deployed quantum listening devices that can intercept their entangled communications without detection. The translation algorithms are building comprehensive language databases for each species. Jen felt a surge of pride in her crew. This was why humanity had chosen to make first contact with overwhelming force rather than a simple diplomatic vessel. The Retribution wasn't just a warship, it was a mobile research platform, intelligence-gathering system, and diplomatic tool all combined into one massive package. What's their assessment of our capabilities? Based on intercepted communications, they're struggling to understand our technology. They've identified our hull composition as an unknown metallic compound, and they're particularly confused by our power signature. Several communications refer to impossible energy readings and unknown propulsion systems. Good. Maintain the mystery for now. The less they understand about our capabilities, the stronger our negotiating position. Chen turned to address the entire bridge crew. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to make history. In less than 3 hours, we will achieve humanity's first contact with an established galactic civilization. Everything we do and say will echo through history for generations to come. She paused, allowing her words to sink in before continuing. Our mission parameters are clear. Establish humanity's position as a major galactic power, gather intelligence on existing political and military structures, and ensure that Earth and her colonies are never again vulnerable to external threats. We will accomplish this through a demonstration of overwhelming technological superiority combined with careful diplomatic maneuvering. The bridge crew listened intently, understanding the weight of their responsibilities. Each of them had been selected not just for their technical expertise, but for their ability to think strategically and adapt to rapidly changing situations. Dr. Hoffman, I want you to prepare multiple communication packages. We'll start with basic mathematical concepts and progress to more complex diplomatic language. However, I want you to include subtle indicators of our technological capabilities in each transmission. Understood, Admiral? I'll embed references to quantum mechanics, relativistic physics, and advanced material science in our initial communications. Let them draw their own conclusions about what those references might mean. Excellent. Commander Torres, what's your recommendation for our approach vector? Torres studied the tactical display with the careful attention of someone who understood that positioning could be as important as firepower in any confrontation. Admiral, I recommend we maintain our current course but reduce velocity to demonstrate peaceful intentions. However, I suggest we position ourselves so that our main battery has clear lines of sight to their primary installations. Aggressive but not provocative. I like it. Make the course correction. As the Retribution adjusted its approach, Chen reflected on the long journey that had brought humanity to this point. 50 years ago, when Earth's deep space telescopes had first detected signs of galactic civilization, the discovery had sparked a fundamental transformation in human society. The realization that they were not alone in the universe had unified the human species in a way that centuries of war and diplomacy had failed to achieve. The following decades had seen an unprecedented surge in technological development as humanity prepared for eventual contact with their galactic neighbors. Military technologies that had been theoretical concepts became practical realities. Scientific principles that had existed only in academic papers were transformed into functional systems. The result was the Retribution and her sister ships, vessels that represented the absolute pinnacle of human engineering and scientific achievement. Each Titan-class warship was essentially a mobile star system, capable of independent operation for decades and possessing the firepower to reshape entire worlds. Admiral, Lieutenant Singh reported, I'm detecting a significant increase in communication traffic between the alien station and what appears to be a central governing authority. The translation algorithms are improving, but the general tone suggests considerable alarm. Are they requesting reinforcements? It's difficult to determine with certainty, but several transmissions include what appear to be military unit designations and tactical assessments. I believe they're briefing their superiors on our capabilities. Chen smiled grimly. Let them brief their superiors. The more the alien leadership understood about humanity's technological advantages, the more likely they would be to approach negotiations with appropriate respect. Commander Kowalski, what's the status of our weapon systems? Main battery charged and ready, kinetic interceptors loaded, and antimatter reserves at maximum capacity. We could engage the entire alien fleet simultaneously and still maintain sufficient reserves for extended operations. And our defensive systems? Quantum shields at full strength, reactive armor primed, and point defense systems online. Admiral, with respect, their entire fleet couldn't penetrate our defenses even if they concentrated their fire. The confidence in Kowalski's voice was well-founded. Human defensive technology had advanced just as rapidly as their offensive capabilities. The Retribution's quantum shields didn't simply deflect incoming fire. They shifted attacking energy and matter into parallel dimensions where it could cause no harm. The reactive armor analyzed incoming threats in real time and reconfigured its molecular structure to provide optimal protection. Excellent. Dr. Hoffman, how long until we're ready to initiate contact? Diplomatic packages are complete, Admiral. I recommend we begin with a simple mathematical sequence to establish our intelligence, followed by linguistic analysis requests to demonstrate our desire for communication, and our technological demonstrations, prepared and ready to deploy on your command. We can show them controlled antimatter reactions, quantum field manipulation, and dimensional displacement technologies without revealing the full extent of our capabilities. Chen nodded with satisfaction. Everything was proceeding according to plan. In less than 3 hours, humanity would announce its presence to the galaxy in a way that would be impossible to ignore or dismiss. Admiral, Ensign Martinez called out from his sensor station. The alien fleet is beginning to adjust their formation. They appear to be positioning themselves to present a united front. Threat analysis? None, Admiral. Their positioning is clearly defensive rather than aggressive. I believe they're attempting to demonstrate solidarity while avoiding any action that could be construed as hostile. Chen studied the tactical display as the alien vessels slowly repositioned themselves. The formation was actually quite elegant from a military perspective. Each vessel was positioned to provide mutual support while maintaining clear firing lanes. It spoke to considerable tactical sophistication, even if their technology was inferior to humanity's. Time to contact: 2 hours, 37 minutes, Admiral. All stations continue standard operations, maintain full sensor sweeps and passive intelligence gathering. When we make contact with this galactic civilization, I want us to know everything there is to know about their capabilities, limitations, and political structure. As the Retribution continued its steady approach toward the alien station, Chen felt the weight of history pressing down upon her shoulders. Humanity was about to take its place among the stars, and she would be the one to speak the first words that would echo through galactic history. The only question that remained was whether those first words would herald an era of peace and cooperation or the beginning of a conflict that would reshape the galaxy forever. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the ancient chambers of Council Prime, a massive space station that had served as the seat of galactic government for over 2 millennia. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, their varied forms creating a tapestry of evolutionary diversity that had taken millions of years to achieve. High Counselor Vexstar stood at the central podium, his cybernetic implants casting eerie shadows across his scarred features. Chamber's acoustic systems amplified his words to reach every corner of the vast assembly hall, while translation matrices converted his speech into the native languages of each attending species. "Fellow counselors," Vexstar began, his voice carrying the weight of 3,000 years of accumulated authority. "We face a situation without precedent in recorded galactic history. An unknown vessel of extraordinary capabilities has entered Council space, and preliminary analysis suggests we are dealing with a civilization whose technological development may exceed our own. In 3 millennia of galactic civilization, no single species had ever possessed technology that significantly surpassed the collective achievements of the Council Alliance. The very suggestion that such a civilization might exist challenged the fundamental assumptions upon which galactic society was built." Counselor Thyssera of the Ethereal Collective rose from her crystalline seat, her translucent form shimmering with agitation. "High Counselor, with respect, such a claim seems highly improbable. Our combined knowledge encompasses the technological achievements of over 1,000 different species. The mathematical probability of a single civilization developing superior technology in isolation approaches 0. Vexstar activated the chamber's holographic display system, and a 3-dimensional image of the approaching vessel materialized above the assembly. Gasps and expressions of shock echoed throughout the chamber as the representatives took in the massive scale and aggressive design of the unknown ship. "Counselor Thyssera, I understand your skepticism. However, the evidence is undeniable." Vexstar manipulated the display controls, highlighting various aspects of the vessel's design. "This ship measures over 20 kilometers in length and displays a power output that exceeds our largest dreadnoughts by several orders of magnitude. More concerning is the evidence of technologies we had previously considered theoretical impossibilities." Counselor Grixstar of the Hegemony War Caste stood with characteristic military bearing. His species had served as the Council's primary military force for centuries, and his opinion carried considerable weight in matters of defense and security. "High Counselor, what specific technologies are we discussing? Our military analysis divisions have studied theoretical weapon and defense systems for millennia. Surely we can develop countermeasures for whatever capabilities this vessel might possess." Vexstar's expression grew grimmer as he accessed additional data files. "Counselor Grixstar, our initial analysis suggests they have achieved practical implementation of antimatter containment, quantum field manipulation, and dimensional displacement technologies. Furthermore, their faster-than-light capability appears to operate on principles we do not currently understand. The chamber fell silent. Each of the technologies Vexstar had mentioned represented breakthroughs that Council scientists had been pursuing for centuries without success. The idea that a single unknown civilization had mastered all of them was almost incomprehensible. Counselor Cephalon of the Synthetic Collective processed this information through his quantum neural networks before responding. Hi, Counselor. If these technological assessments are accurate, then we may be facing a civilization that represents an entirely different evolutionary path. Their development pattern does not match any of the known templates for technological advancement. Explain, Vexstar requested. Council records show that all known civilizations follow predictable patterns of technological development. Energy weapons precede kinetic systems. Basic space travel develops before advanced propulsion, and defensive technologies typically lag behind offensive capabilities. However, this vessel appears to have mastered advanced versions of all these technologies simultaneously. Counselor Dreth of the Void Hunters leaned forward, her predatory features reflecting the concern that was spreading throughout the chamber. Cephalon raises an important point. Such rapid technological development typically occurs only under extreme pressure, either from environmental catastrophe or prolonged warfare. We may be dealing with a species that has been forged by conflict. The implications of Dreth's observation were not lost on the assembled representatives. A species developed through extended warfare would likely view diplomacy and negotiation very differently than the carefully balanced political structures that govern council space. High Counselor Vexstar activated additional displays showing the reconnaissance data gathered by Admiral Zethka's forces. Our military analysis confirms Counselor Dreth's assessment. The vessel's design philosophy emphasizes overwhelming firepower and multi-layered defensive systems. This is not the work of a peaceful civilization. Counselor Murthak of the Ancient Order rose slowly, his advanced age apparent in every movement. As the oldest-serving counselor and representative of one of the galaxy's first spacefaring civilizations, his words carried particular weight in council deliberations. Hi, Counselor. In my species' long history, we have encountered situations where unknown civilizations emerged to challenge the established order. In every case, the key to peaceful resolution was demonstrating that the benefits of cooperation outweighed the potential gains from conflict. And if they are not interested in cooperation? Asked Counselor Thessera. Murthak's ancient eyes reflected centuries of accumulated wisdom. Then we must demonstrate that the costs of conflict would be prohibitive. However, given the technological disparity we appear to be facing, such a demonstration may not be possible. Vexstar accessed the most recent intelligence reports from the frontier. Counselors, we have received additional information that may influence our discussion. The approaching vessel has deployed hundreds of reconnaissance drones throughout the sector. Each drone appears to be equipped with advanced sensor arrays and antimatter warheads. A new wave of concern rippled through the chamber. The deployment of armed reconnaissance drones was typically considered an act of aggression in Council space, yet the unknown vessel had done so with apparent impunity. Counselor Grickstar stood again, his military training evident in his bearing. High Counselor, this confirms that we are dealing with a military reconnaissance operation. They are mapping our defenses and identifying strategic targets. I recommend we mobilize the Council fleet and prepare for potential conflict. And if our mobilization is interpreted as an act of aggression, asked Counselor Cephalon, given their apparent technological advantages, we might find ourselves in a conflict we cannot win. The debate that followed revealed the deep philosophical divisions within the Council. The military representatives favored a show of strength, believing that any sign of weakness would invite aggression. The diplomatic faction argued for peaceful contact and negotiation, hoping to avoid conflict through compromise. The scientific representatives were divided, with some fascinated by the potential for technological exchange and others concerned about the implications of such advanced capabilities in potentially hostile hands. High Counselor Vexstar listened to the debate with growing concern. The Council had maintained peace for 3 millennia through careful balance and mutual deterrence, but those systems had been designed to manage conflicts between civilizations of roughly equal technological capability. They had never been tested against a potential adversary who might possess overwhelming superiority. "Counselors," he called, bringing the debate to a temporary halt. "We have received word that the unknown vessel will reach communication range within 2 hours. We must decide on our approach before that time." Counselor Thessera accessed her species' collective consciousness before speaking. "High Counselor, the Ethereal Collective recommends a cautious approach to first contact. We should attempt to establish communication while maintaining defensive readiness. However, we must avoid any action that could be construed as provocative." "And if they prove hostile despite our peaceful overtures?" asked Counselor Dreth. "Then we adapt our response accordingly. However, we should not assume hostile intent based solely on superior technology." Counselor Murthak nodded his agreement. "The Ethereal Collective's recommendation has merit. Our first priority should be establishing communication and determining their intentions. We can assess military options if diplomacy fails." Vextar called for a formal vote on the Council's response protocol. The results reflected the complexity of the situation. 32 votes for peaceful first contact with defensive readiness, 12 votes for immediate military mobilization, and 3 abstentions from species that required additional time to consult their home governments. "The decision is made," Vextar announced. "We will attempt peaceful first contact while maintaining defensive preparations. Admiral Zethka has been instructed to avoid any action that could be interpreted as aggressive unless directly fired upon." As the council session continued, additional intelligence reports arrived from the frontier. The unknown vessel had maintained its steady approach while its reconnaissance drones completed their systematic mapping of council space. Most disturbing was the report that the drones had successfully penetrated several layers of council security protocols, gathering detailed information about military installations and defensive capabilities. Counselor Zephalon processed the new data through his quantum neural networks before sharing his analysis. "Hi, Counselor. Based on the reconnaissance patterns and data gathering methods, I believe we are dealing with a civilization that approaches first contact as a military operation. They are gathering intelligence in preparation for potential conflict. Or they are simply being cautious," suggested Counselor Tessera. "If we appeared in their space with unknown capabilities, would we not conduct similar reconnaissance?" The debate resumed with renewed intensity as counselors struggled to interpret the actions and intentions of the approaching vessel. Some viewed the reconnaissance activities as evidence of hostile intent, while others argued that such caution was natural when encountering unknown civilizations. Meanwhile, additional reports began arriving from other sectors of Council space. Deep space monitoring stations were detecting unusual energy signatures that might indicate the presence of additional unknown vessels. If accurate, these reports suggested that the massive ship approaching Council Station might not be alone. High Counselor Vextar felt the weight of decision pressing down upon him as he considered the implications. If the Council faced not just one technologically superior vessel, but an entire fleet, their options for resistance would be severely limited. The carefully constructed balance of power that had maintained galactic peace for millennia might be about to collapse. "Counselors," he announced, "we have just received reports of possible additional unknown vessels in Sector 7 and 12. If confirmed, we may be dealing with a coordinated operation involving multiple ships of similar capabilities." The chamber erupted in heated discussion as representatives grappled with the possibility that their first contact situation had just escalated into a potential invasion scenario. The calm deliberation that had characterized the early portions of the session gave way to urgent debates about evacuation protocols, emergency military mobilization, and diplomatic alternatives. Counselor Grickstar stood once more, his voice cutting through the chaos. "High Counselor, if we are indeed facing multiple vessels of similar capability, then our defensive options are limited. I recommend we begin evacuation of non-essential personnel from frontier installations while attempting to establish communication with the approaching vessels." "Evacuation could be interpreted as an admission of weakness," argued Counselor Dreth. "If these beings are indeed militaristic, showing fear might encourage aggression. And if they are not militaristic, but interpret our military preparations as hostile intent, countered Counselor Tisasara, we could provoke the very conflict we are trying to avoid. As the debate continued, Vextar received a priority communication from Admiral Zethka. The message was brief but alarming. The approaching vessel had just activated what appeared to be a quantum communication array and was transmitting data to unknown recipients at faster-than-light speeds. The implications were clear. Whatever civilization had constructed these vessels possessed not only superior technology, but also the infrastructure to coordinate operations across interstellar distances in real time. The Council was not just facing a single unknown ship. They were confronting an organized civilization with capabilities that challenged the fundamental assumptions of galactic politics. With less than 2 hours remaining before first contact, High Counselor Vextar realized that the next few hours would determine not just the outcome of this encounter, but potentially the future of galactic civilization itself. The age of Council dominance might be coming to an end, and a new era of galactic politics was about to begin. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the massive view screen on the Retribution's bridge, watching as the alien space station grew from a distant speck to a clearly defined structure. The engineering was impressive, she had to admit. Crystalline spires that caught and refracted light in beautiful patterns, while organic curves flowed seamlessly into geometric sections that spoke to the collaboration between multiple species. "Final approach vector confirmed, Admiral," reported Commander Torres from her position at the science station. "Will achieve optimal communication range in 47 minutes. Around her, the bridge crew performed their duties with the quiet efficiency that had become the hallmark of human space operations. Every system had been checked and rechecked, every protocol reviewed and refined. They were as ready as they would ever be. Doctors asking, Hoffman, status of our communication packages? The xenolinguistic specialist looked up from her array of displays, her eyes bright with anticipation. All packages prepared and tested, Admiral. We have mathematical sequences, linguistic analysis requests, and cultural exchange proposals ready for transmission. I've also prepared several technological demonstrations that should establish our capabilities without appearing overly aggressive. Excellent. Commander Kowalski, weapon status? All systems nominal, Admiral. Main battery at full charge, kinetic interceptors loaded, point defense systems online. We maintain sufficient firepower to engage the entire alien fleet while retaining strategic reserves. Chen smiled slightly. The confidence in her tactical officer's voice was well-founded. The Retribution alone possessed more firepower than the entire assembled alien fleet, and her sister ships were positioned at strategic points throughout human space, ready to provide support if needed. Lieutenant Singh, any change in their communication patterns? The communications officer manipulated his controls with practiced efficiency. Considerable increase in encrypted transmissions, Admiral. The translation algorithms have made significant progress, and the general tone suggests considerable debate among their leadership. However, they continue to maintain defensive postures without any overtly hostile actions. What's your assessment of their political structure? Based on communication patterns and fleet composition, I believe we're looking at some sort of multi-species confederation or alliance. The decision-making process appears to be consensus-based, which could work to our advantage in negotiations. Chen turned to study the tactical displays showing the alien fleet's positioning. 6 distinct technological signatures, 12 major vessels, and countless smaller support craft. It represented the combined military might of multiple civilizations, yet she felt no concern about the outcome if conflict became necessary. Dr. Hoffman, what's your assessment of their psychological state? The xenolinguistics specialist consulted her behavioral analysis algorithms before responding. Admiral, intercepted communications suggest significant anxiety and uncertainty. They appear to be struggling to categorize our technology within their existing knowledge frameworks. Several references suggests they view us as a potential threat of unprecedented magnitude. Good. Fear can be a useful tool in negotiations, provided it doesn't lead to desperation. Chen activated her personal communication array and opened a channel to Earth Command. The quantum entanglement network would allow instantaneous communication across the vast distances separating the Retribution from human space. Earth Command, this is Admiral Chen aboard the Retribution. We are approaching final communication range with the Alien Confederation. All systems nominal, crew ready for first contact protocols. The response came immediately, transmitted across the quantum network from the depths of the Sol system. Admiral Chen, this is Fleet Admiral Rodriguez. You are authorized to proceed with first contact according to established protocols. Remember, you are not just representing Earth, but humanity's future among the stars. Understood, Earth Command. We will make humanity's introduction to the galaxy appropriately memorable. Chen closed the communication channel and turned back to her bridge crew. The next few hours would be remembered throughout human history, and she intended to ensure that humanity's first impression on galactic civilization would be both impressive. "Admiral," called out Ensign Martinez from the sensor station, "we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the alien station. Their defensive systems are fully online, but they're not targeting us directly." "Minimal, Admiral?" "Their defensive technologies appear to be designed for conventional energy weapons and kinetic projectiles. They show no evidence of countermeasures for our advanced weapon systems." Chen nodded with satisfaction. Human weapons technology had been specifically designed to counter the defensive systems they had observed throughout the galaxy. Quantum destabilized projectiles would pass through their energy shields as if they didn't exist, while antimatter warheads would overwhelm any known defensive measure. "Commander Torres, begin passive analysis of their technological systems. I want complete specifications on their power generation, weapons capabilities, and defensive measures." "Already in progress, Admiral. Our sensor arrays are conducting detailed analysis of their hull compositions, energy signatures, and internal layouts. The intelligence databases are building comprehensive technical profiles of each vessel type. And their communication systems? We've successfully intercepted and decoded approximately 60% of their internal communications. The translation matrices are building comprehensive language databases for each species represented." Chen felt a surge of pride in human intelligence capabilities. While the aliens had spent centuries developing their individual technologies, humanity had spent decades studying all of their achievements simultaneously. The result was a comprehensive understanding of galactic civilization that no single species could match. "Dr. Huffman, what have you learned about their cultural and political structures?" "Admiral, the intercepted communications reveal significant information about their governmental system, appear to operate as a confederation based on consensus decision-making, with each species maintaining semi-autonomous status within a larger alliance structure. Weaknesses we can exploit? The consensus-based system makes rapid decision-making difficult, particularly in crisis situations. Additionally, their multi-species composition creates inherent communication barriers and cultural conflicts that could be leveraged if negotiations become difficult." Chen smiled grimly. Human diplomatic training had emphasized understanding and exploiting the weaknesses of potential adversaries. A confederation of multiple species would inevitably suffer from divided loyalties and competing interests. "Admiral," Lieutenant Singh reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien station. It appears to be a formal greeting protocol, transmitted in multiple languages. Standard diplomatic language, Admiral. They identify themselves as representatives of the Galactic Council and request that we state our intentions and origin. The tone is carefully neutral, neither hostile nor particularly welcoming. Prepare our response package, but don't transmit yet. I want to maintain the initiative in this conversation." Chen turned to address her bridge crew. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to make humanity's formal introduction to galactic civilization. Everything we do and say will establish humanity's position in the galactic hierarchy for generations to come. We will demonstrate that humans are not simply another species seeking membership in existing power structures. We are a force that will reshape galactic politics according to our own vision. The bridge crew listened with rapt attention, understanding the weight of their responsibilities. Each of them had been selected not just for technical expertise, but for their ability to think strategically and project human interests on an interstellar scale. "Communication range achieved, Admiral," reported Commander Torres. "We can establish real-time communication with the alien station." Chen studied the main view screen, which now showed the alien space station in perfect detail. The structure was indeed impressive, representing the combined engineering capabilities of multiple advanced civilizations. But impressive was not the same as intimidating, and she felt no doubt about humanity's ability to match or exceed their achievements. "Dr. Hoffman, transmit our initial communication package." The xenolinguistics specialist activated the transmission arrays, sending humanity's first official message to galactic civilization. The package began with mathematical sequences that would demonstrate human intelligence, progressed to linguistic analysis requests that would establish communication protocols, and concluded with subtle references to advanced scientific principles that would hint at human technological capabilities. "Transmission sent, Admiral. Response time should be approximately 3 minutes, given their distance." Chen used those 3 minutes to review humanity's strategic position. The retribution represented just the beginning of human expansion into galactic space. Construction facilities in Earth orbit were producing additional Titan-class vessels at an accelerating pace, while colonies throughout human space were developing the industrial infrastructure necessary to support extended interstellar operations. More importantly, humanity possessed something their potential galactic neighbors lacked: unity of purpose. While the alien confederation struggled with the inherent difficulties of multi-species cooperation, humanity presented a united front backed by focused technological development and clear strategic objectives. "Admiral, we're receiving a response," Singh reported. "Content." They acknowledge our mathematical sequences and express interest in establishing formal diplomatic contact. However, they also request detailed information about our origin, technological capabilities, and intentions regarding Council space. J. Standard intelligence gathering disguised as diplomatic inquiry, Chen observed. "Dr. Hoffman, prepare our response. Include basic information about human origin and peaceful intentions, but embed references to our technological capabilities that will give them something to think about." As the exchange of messages continued, Chen monitored the tactical situation with practiced attention. The alien fleet maintained their defensive formation, but she noticed subtle adjustments that suggested growing nervousness among their command staff. "Commander Kowalski, what's your assessment of their fleet readiness?" "Admiral, they're maintaining weapons systems at standby rather than full combat readiness. Their formation is designed for mutual support rather than aggressive action. I believe they're attempting to project strength while avoiding provocative measures. And if they decided to engage us?" Kowalski consulted his tactical displays with professional detachment. "Admiral, their combined firepower would be insufficient to penetrate our defensive systems. We could eliminate their entire fleet within 30 minutes while maintaining strategic reserves for extended operations." The confidence in her tactical officer's assessment was based on comprehensive analysis of human defensive technologies. The Retribution's quantum shields didn't simply deflect incoming attacks. They shifted hostile energy and matter into parallel dimensions where it could cause no harm. Even concentrated fire from the entire alien fleet would be ineffective against such defenses. "Admiral," Dr. Hoffman called out, "I'm detecting subtle changes in their communication patterns. The linguistic analysis suggests increasing anxiety among their leadership. Several communications include references to unprecedented capabilities and unknown threat levels. They're beginning to understand the magnitude of what they're facing," Chen observed with satisfaction. "Continue the communication exchange, but begin introducing references to human military capabilities. Nothing overtly threatening, just subtle indications that we possess substantial defensive resources." As the diplomatic exchange progressed, additional intelligence began flowing in from the reconnaissance drones that had been deployed throughout the sector. The data painted a comprehensive picture of Council military capabilities, political structures, and potential weaknesses. Admiral Commander Torres reported, "Analysis of their fleet composition suggests this represents a significant portion of their available military assets. If our intelligence estimates are correct, eliminating this fleet would substantially reduce their overall military capabilities and their industrial capacity, limited compared to human standards, Admiral. Their manufacturing facilities appear to be distributed across multiple worlds with limited coordination between species. They lack the centralized production capabilities that allow rapid military expansion." Chen nodded with understanding. Human industrial planning had emphasized efficiency and scalability from the beginning of their expansion beyond Earth. The result was a production capacity that could support extended military operations while maintaining technological advancement. Dr. Matthew Hoffman, what's your assessment of their negotiating position? Admiral, they're attempting to project authority while gathering intelligence about our capabilities and intentions. However, their questions are becoming increasingly specific about our military resources and territorial claims. They're trying to determine whether we represent an immediate threat or a potential future problem, Chen observed. Prepare to transmit our territorial requirements and defensive parameters. Let them understand the scope of human expansion plans. The next transmission from the Retribution included detailed information about human territorial claims throughout the local region of the galaxy. The map showed current human colonies, planned expansion routes, and defensive perimeters that encompassed dozens of star systems. The response from the Alien Confederation was immediate and alarmed. Their territorial claims overlapped with several systems that humanity had marked for colonization, creating the potential for immediate conflict over resources and strategic positions. Admiral, Singh reported, their communications traffic has increased dramatically. We're detecting emergency conferences among their leadership and requests for additional military assets from their home systems. Chen smiled grimly. Now the aliens were beginning to understand the reality of their situation. Humanity wasn't seeking membership in existing galactic power structures. They were announcing their intention to reshape the galaxy according to human interests and strategic requirements. The stage was set for the most crucial negotiations in galactic history, with the future of multiple civilizations hanging in the balance. The main communication channel crackled to life with an incoming transmission from the Council Station. Admiral Chen straightened in her command chair as the bridge crew prepared to receive what would likely be the most important diplomatic communication in human history. Admiral Lieutenant Singh reported, "We're receiving a formal request for direct communication from High Admiral Zethka of the Valorian Empire. The transmission includes full diplomatic credentials and requests a real-time conference." Chen considered the request carefully. Direct communication would allow for more nuanced negotiation, but it would also provide the aliens with additional opportunities to assess human capabilities and intentions. After a moment's consideration, she decided the benefits outweighed the risks. Accept the transmission. Full holographic conference mode. The bridge's central holographic projector activated, and the image of High Admiral Zethka materialized before them. Chen studied the alien commander with professional interest, noting the military bearing that transcended species boundaries, and the obvious stress indicators that suggested the magnitude of the situation was not lost on him. "High Admiral Zethka," Chen began, her voice carrying the calm authority that had earned her command of humanity's most powerful vessel. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Starfleet. I understand you wish to discuss our presence in this region of space." Zethka's breathing apparatus wheezed slightly as he processed the translation and formulated his response. "Admiral Chen, I speak for the Galactic Council when I express our desire to establish peaceful relations with your civilization. However, your presence here has raised significant concerns about your intentions and the scope of your territorial claims." "Our intentions are straightforward, High Admiral. Humanity seeks to establish our rightful place among the galactic civilizations, and to secure the resources necessary for our continued expansion and development. The alien commander's compound eyes narrowed as he absorbed the implications of Chen's words. Admiral, the systems you have claimed for human expansion include several that fall within established Council territories. Such claims cannot be recognized without significant negotiation and compensation. Chen leaned forward slightly, her expression remaining diplomatically neutral while her tone carried an unmistakable undertone of steel. Hi, Admiral. I believe there may be some misunderstanding about the nature of these negotiations. Humanity is not requesting permission for expansion. We are informing you of our intentions and providing opportunity for peaceful accommodation. The silence that followed Chen's statement stretched for several seconds as the full meaning of her words became clear. When Zethika finally responded, his voice carried a mixture of disbelief and growing alarm. Admiral Chen, are you suggesting that humanity intends to claim Council territories regardless of our response to these negotiations? I am stating, High Admiral, that humanity will expand according to our strategic requirements and population needs. We would prefer to accomplish this through peaceful agreement, but we are prepared to secure our interests through other means if necessary. Chen activated the tactical display system, and a three-dimensional map of the local galactic region materialized between them. Red markers indicated current human colonies, while blue zones showed projected expansion areas. The scope of human territorial claims encompassed dozens of star systems, many of which overlapped with established Council space. As you can see, Chen continued, humanity's expansion requirements are extensive. We are prepared to offer compensation for any existing infrastructure in systems we require, and we are willing to establish trade agreements that will benefit all parties involved. The human expansion plans weren't simply claiming uninhabited systems. They were asserting control over strategic sectors that included established Council colonies and industrial facilities. Admiral Chen, the scope of your territorial claims would displace millions of sentient beings and disrupt established trade routes that have existed for centuries. Surely some accommodation can be reached that doesn't require such extensive reorganization of existing boundaries. Chen's expression remained diplomatic, but her words carried the weight of absolute conviction. High Admiral, humanity has studied galactic civilization for decades. We understand the established power structures and territorial arrangements. However, these arrangements were made without human input or consideration for human needs. We are now correcting that oversight. The alien commander's stress indicators became more pronounced as he grappled with the reality of humanity's position. Admiral, what you're describing would essentially require the Council to surrender significant portions of our territory to accommodate human expansion. Such demands cannot be accepted without substantial justification. The justification, High Admiral, is simple. Humanity possesses the technological and military capabilities to enforce our territorial requirements. We would prefer to accomplish our expansion through peaceful negotiation, but we are fully prepared to secure our interests through military action. If Chen activated additional display systems, showing technical specifications of the Retribution's weapon systems.